Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, we start in Pasuk Gimel. So now we're continuing the Shvachim, the praising of the Neshama or of the Knesset Israel, etc. The Pasuk says the following: Kemigdal David, Kehut Hashani, right? The third Pasuk, Kehut Hashani. We're talking about the crimson thread, right? That's the thread that was put on the Korban Lashem, the Korban Echad Lashem, and Korban Echad LaAzazel. Those are the thread that we used to put on the horn or around the neck of the two Korbanot of Yom Kippur. Siftotair, your lips are like the crimson thread. Umidbarech nave, and your mouth mitbarech milashon dibur, right? Milashon dibur, to speak. Your mouth nave is beautiful, is lovely. Kefelach harimon rakater. Rakater is your brow, okay? Is like the felach of the riman. So it's like kefelach harimon is when you split the pomegranate, okay? It has this very red juice colory that comes out, like it's when you. That's one of the pirushim. Like when you open the rimon, it has a lot of shapes, red, beautiful shapes. As kefela harimon rakater, your face looks like the beauty of the rimon when it's mibad letzamater, behind or hiding behind your tzama, behind your brow. Translation is okay?
Yes.
Okay. So here, the Gaon raises a few points. He says, the Hashani, that there is two things. There is the thread, right? The thread, the crimson thread that is compared to the lips, and then there is the loveliness of the mouth. That's one thing. And then there is the comparison to the rimon, the beauty of the rimon, okay? That sits behind the brow. So he says, first, he starts by talking about the Hut Hashani. The Hut Hashani is the Hut, is the thread that the Kohen Gadol used to have in order to determine whether HaKadosh Baruch Hu listened to his tefillot and accepted the teshuvah of Am Yisrael. Says the Gaon Mivilna, the lips have for purpose also to communicate and help the teeth formulate words. Says the lips are usually soft versus the teeth. It's the part of the formulation that must bring a level of softness and agility to the nefesh of a person. What does that mean? He says this is where a person recognizes when he is doing something wrong or when he did an avera, and is ready to say it in order to be able to do teshuvah. He says the mouth has in it the rigidity, right? But it needs also the softness when it comes to the assessment and the acknowledgement of the flaws and the averot that a person does in order to do teshuvah. Kehut Shani, says the Gaon, can also mean the songs that the Leviim used to sing during the korbanot. We sing, when you sing, also another way to use the mouth is to sing. And this brings this happiness, it opens the heart to be able to have a better connection. So the Gaon says, here Shlomo HaMelech is addressing another contrast that creates a balance in the Avodat Hashem. On one end, we have what we discussed last shiur from the teeth. On the other, it's this ability to charm, to be soft, to have words of kindness. That's from the perspective of a Levi, but also a perspective of the Kohen, which is the ability to say what we do wrong, accept it, and do teshuvah. It says the Gaon Mivilna, usually when you start saying what you do wrong, you create a level of vulnerability, right? You put yourself at risk. It's hard to say, I did something wrong. It's hard to admit. But he says, Shlomo HaMelech is telling us that in order to have mitbarech naveh, to have a beautiful mouth, a lovely mouth, meaning to have your words that are lovely, are penetrating the hearts of people, to be able for your dibur, for your words to be valued and respected, you have to be able also to own your own mistakes. And not only for yourself, but to express it to the proper party or to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's also important, says the Gaon, is that if you want your words to be lovely when you pray, if you want your words to be lovely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Lovely in that context, what is it? It is the emotional reaction of the person listening to what you say. Says the Gaon Mivilna, if you want your words to be accepted by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you want your words to be embraced by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you want your prayers to be listened, it's not just by asking and saying and saying the right words. It starts by a level of honesty and recognition of the wrongdoings. He also says this is the ability to create chesed. He says that it takes knowledge, which is the hora'ah, which is the Torah, but it also takes chesed, kindness, to be able to teach the Torah. So once again, we find this contrast and complementary opposites between the teeth and the lips, where you find the rigidity of the Torah, but the formulation of the Torah in a very soft way, the lips. And he says, כפלח הרימון רקתך. So he says, the Gaon, he says, כפלח הרימון רקתך, your face is like as beautiful like the rimon, But here the Gaon, what he wants to say, he says that the Rimon looks like a Chaim Tovim, looks like a head, right? If you look at the Rimon, it has the Gulgolet, it has the you know, the skull, right? And it has on it a crown, right? So he says it's and there's no hair to it. It's very how can I guess it looks like a skin. Yeah, it has the redness also of that looks like, obviously it's comparable, yeah, to the skin. And he says your face is clean without hair, right? Just like the rimon, that hides behind the veil of your tzama, of your braid, or we said of the veil that was covering the face in the first pasuk. So he says, we know that the hair represents the Talmidei Chachamim. It represents the thoughts and the chokhmah, right? Those are the front of the hair. The back of the hair represents the Nevi'im, right? And together we take it all and we braid it. So all these are the different types of people that have wisdom, that have koach, that have Torah, that have Talmidei Chachamim, that have Nevuah. But he says you also have Amei Aratzim. You also have people that don't have any Torah, that don't have any wisdom. And these are represented by the places of the face that do not have any hair. This is the intellectual vulnerability found in men, right? It's the places around the face that do not have facial hair. In parentheses, from where we find, according to the Torah, the importance of the zakan, and not to shave with the blade. Shaving with the blade is uprooting your ability to knowledge, to grow and express the knowledge within your essence.
Then why is it only in relation to the face?
I'm sorry?
Why is it only in relation to the face and not other places where hair grows?
Because the chokhmah is the face. The chokhmah sits in the brain, right? In the mohin. It's in the mohin. So says the Gaon Mivilna, the facial hair, by the way, which is according to the Zohar Kadosh, right? The dikna, the zakan, the beard represents the channels of wisdom. We spoke about it in the past. So he says that the places where we don't have hair is the place of intellectual. Adam is looking at where he has hair, where he doesn't. Is the place where we have intellectual weaknesses and vulnerabilities. But it also represents a type of people, right? If the front hair represents the Talmidei Chachamim, the back hair represents the Nevi'im, etc., right? So the face where we don't have any hair represents people that don't have so much wisdom and Chokhmat Torah. And he says, even them, meaning even the people that do not have Chokhmah, they can have the Rimon. Okay? When we say Malay mitzvot karimon, a person is full of mitzvot like the rimon, right? Which means that even in places where we don't have clarity and we don't have logic, there is room to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with actions, with mitzvot. Shlomo HaMelech tells us that in order to retain this level of spiritualism, not everything has a logical answer. Not in every place you will understand. So that's where the action of the rimon comes in. That's where the beauty of the rimon comes in. That although you have this very slick and almost dry, without any too much life to it, the peel of the rimon, inside you have the fruit. Inside you have the beauty. And that's what also the pirush of the half of the rimon is. That don't look at the fact that you might lack knowledge and therefore decide not to act or not to do certain things. No. Look at the inside. Look at the inside. Go to the action. Go to the juice of the rimon. Look at the beauty of the rimon, even if you don't understand it, because there is a level of beauty to an action, even though it's lacking knowledge. And he says, and here he goes into a little bit of Kabbalah, but he says that the face is split into two. Just like a rimon. When you cut a rimon, you cut it in half. Okay, it's split into two. The right side representing the mitzvot aseh, the left side representing the mitzvot lo ta'aseh, the prohibitions of the Torah, just like the Luchot Aberit, right? The Luchot were given with two. We were given two Luchot. We were given two tables, right? One with the proactivity, the mitzvot aseh, and the one with the isur of the lo ta'aseh. And he says, in a woman, her beauty comes with hair, right? Comes with hair. And the hair of a woman, if you let it natural, will fall in front of her face. He says this is the protection of the Talmidei Chachamim. He says that when you don't have the wisdom, when you don't have the connection, when you don't have the ability to understand, the fact that you have in front of you Talmidei Chachamim, you're protected by them. This is where you will find your knowledge. This is where you will find your answers, even if it doesn't grow from within you, right? The woman doesn't have the facial hair, but she has the hair in front of her. This is, if you will, the level of protection and relationship there is between Talmidei Chachamim and Amei Aratzot, right? And that's going back to Aseh Lecharav, right? But you can only do that. You can only do that if you have the relationship to the frontal hair, which represents the Talmidei Chachamim. That will help you and enable you to do actions, even if you're lacking information. Why? Because a Yerei Shamayim, somebody that had fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu and fear the mistake, if he doesn't know, he freezes. Like the Mishnah in Avot says, "Velo am haaretz chasid." Right? If you are am haaretz, you cannot be a hasid. You cannot. What does that mean? If you say, "I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do that," because you don't know, that doesn't make you a hasid. But from what do you see from this? That a Yerei Shamayim, right? You could be a Yerei Shamayim and am haaretz and not be knowledgeable. But that doesn't make you a Hasid, right? So we see that the Yerei Shamayim will freeze when he doesn't know and add on humrot, add on layers of restrictions just because he doesn't know. So in order to be proactive and in order to be able to do and to reveal the rimon and to reveal the fruit within the pomegranate, within the which represents the actions, you need to have in front of you a source that will help you guide you, which is the Talmidei Chachamim.
Ignorance of the law is no defense.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So here Shlomo HaMelech, with his wisdom, but also with his anava, okay, tells us that in order to keep the growth going, you cannot just focus on the hair. You have to also be aware of the nakedness of the face from the hair that needs to have also actions. And how do I do actions when I don't know? I refer to the Talmidei Chachamim. And this is the beauty of Aseh Lecharav. This is the beauty of Aseh Lecharav. Good?
Good.
The Malbim, כחוט השני שפתותייך ומתברך נווה, he's talking about the nefesh adibrit, the ruach memalela, the ruach that allows you to speak. And he says the mouth, the lips are a very dangerous weapon. As we all know, yeah? You could kill, but you know you can also build. He says, in the mouth, we have the grains of the pomegranate. We have the grains of the juice, of the beauty of the pomegranate. He says, when you use it, kadosh, when you use your mouth for mitzvot, like we say that the rimon is compared, right? The pomegranate is compared to the mitzvot, to the 613 mitzvot. Yes, because there is a famous thought or saying that in a pomegranate you will find 613 grains, right? The Taryag mitzvot. He says when your mouth is busy with your mitzvot, so it becomes a power of kedusha. And this is what braids everything together. He says the power that sits behind the braid, meaning behind the veil that holds on and everything together connected, it's the tochen, it's the content of your mouth. I think we have addressed once that every person comes to this world with a very specific amount of words he's allowed to say. Comes the Malbim and says, you can choose Divrei Torah or Divrei Hevel. I remember my grandfather, and I'm sure it's the same thing around us. Maybe today less because we text, but our grandparents, etc., used to speak less and do more. Emor me'at va'aseh arve, right? And when they talked. There was content, not cheap talk. This is what the Malbim is trying to concentrate from from Shlomo HaMelech's teaching. He says you need to learn, if you want to be connected and you want to be able to retain this level, you need to be valuing and protecting your dibur, your mouth, your speech. And its content has to be a content that has productive mitzvot to it. And he says, and if you do that through mishpatim, through teaching halacha, through talking divrei chesed, by talking Torah, you will end up talking Ruach HaKodesh. Your words will reveal things that are hidden to the rest of the people. Suddenly, you don't understand, but you're so concentrated. And when we think about it, once you control your speech and you're careful with what comes out of your mouth, so first of all, you don't talk Lashon Hara. That's number one, right? Surmera va'aseh tov. But also now your speech and your chokhmah are slowly merging and becoming one. So your chokhmah becomes your speech, and your speech becomes your chokhmah, which leads eventually to the Ruach HaKodesh, to saying things and seeing things that others cannot see, which was the secret, he says, to reach the level of prophecy.
If I understand it correctly, you're saying that the more mitzvot you do, the more you use your mouth for Torah, for halacha, etc., the more the restraint will be built so that you will refrain from talking anything of Hevel or Lashon Hara.
That's right. But that's step one. Step two, now that's what you refrain yourself from. But then the content of what you actually say becomes the Dvar Hashem. It becomes the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's and like Chachamim say, Shechina, Shora betor mitoch grono. That the Tanaim, the Tzadikim, when they talk, they don't talk. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu talking in their mouth. So now we understand the power of the beracha. When we go to a tzaddik, we ask for a beracha. Where does the koach of what comes out come from? From the synergy and that alignment between the power of speech and the neshama that is vibrant within the chokhmah, through the chokhmah and the binah and the da'at of the person. And he says that what allows then the speech to come out and impact creation. Now he says, so what is Kefela Harimon Rakater? Kefela Harimon Rakater is referring to the level of emptiness, right? Of dryness, like the peel of the rimon, of the pomegranate. He says that dryness is what you refrain yourself from saying, is what you restrict yourself. Yeah, there's the soft side and the juicy side of you, which comes from the grains of the rimon, and then there is the dryness of refraining yourself from saying nonsense, talking hakibalash, like we say, yeah? Talking lashon hara. And yes, sometimes it comes off like someone that is dry. It comes off like someone that is stiff. But it's in order to protect the grains of the mitzvot that are inside. It's in order to create that juice that is so healthy, that is so sweet, that is so beautiful, that is so important and refreshing. It says this is kefela harimon rakater. There is a peel of stiffness, but there's a reason for it. When a person says, I don't want to talk lashon hara, but yeah, you need to know. I don't want to know. When you stop yourself and you build that layer of stiffness around you, this is what actually protects the inside. The byproduct and the benefit from it is that everything you will say after that, it's rimon, it's pomegranate, it's the grains. And he says, "Mibad letzamater," and he sits behind the veil, behind the braid. He says, this is what keeps everything together. Says the Malbim, this is what allows a person to have his neshama, his chokhmah, his heart, all structured and interconnected. Because if you let loose the speech, then you allow the heart to talk when it wants, the chokhmah to talk when it wants, and then you're completely fragmented. And then, yes, you have to fight to bring them together, to connect them together, and then you have this fire inside of Yetzer Hara. Then you're really in an internal battle. So the Malbim says, Shlomo HaMelech comes and tells you know how I was able to connect everything, right? Because according to the Malbim, the Mizot Olam Idbar is what? Is really this ability to coexist between the two opposites, right? Between the body and the neshama in Shlomo HaMelech. How did he do that? But there's a fight, there's a contradiction. He says you create the harmony when you control your mouth. This is the connector between all the different kochot within the nefesh.
I love that.
It's
beautiful.
It's not fully spiritual because it's not the machshava, it's not the thought, and it's not fully physical, which is the desire, the physical desire. It sits in between. That's the link that allows a person to control everything. That's the control center, the control center. So, although we would think that the mouth, again, is just a tool to something more deeper, there is much more to the mouth than just a tool. That's what the Malbim comes and teaches us. So, from the Gaon that takes an angle of the content, right, of the lips and the mouth and how the impact it has through the Torah and mitzvot and the chesed, we also understand it now better with the Malbim, because the Malbim takes the mouth and the lips and puts it back in perspective inside the nefesh. Good?
Very good.
Any questions?
No, it's great.
That's the third pasuk. I think we're going to leave it here because then we're going to Migdal David. We're talking about something else.
Thank you so much, Rav.
With pleasure. With pleasure.
Thank you, Rav. Stan, I'll call you now.
Love you guys. Love you.
Love you too.
Love you.
Rav, have a great day.
You too, Sadiq. You too.